Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. San Diego County public health officials are pushing back against new federal childhood vaccine guidelines. KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco says they are urging parents to instead follow guidance from the American Academy of Pediatrics.
This week, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reduced the number of vaccines routinely recommended for all children. The changes were made without the usual input from pediatric and vaccine advisory groups.
We wish they hadn't done that. We wish they presented their recommendations in one of our regular meetings, and we would have had a chance to discuss it.
Dr. John Bradley is a pediatric infectious disease specialist at Rady Children's Hospital. He says the science behind childhood vaccines hasn't changed. That includes 6 vaccines the CDC is no longer recommending.
We believe that the vaccines for RSV, hepatitis A and B, rotavirus, flu, and meningococcus should continue to be given.
San Diego County health officials will follow the previous vaccine schedule. It is recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics, the California Department of Public Health, and the West Coast Health Alliance. Bradley says the CDC's move puts more pressure on parents.
Parents don't know all the questions to ask. They're parents. That's their job. They're not medical professionals who spent their lives reviewing vaccine data and coming up with recommendations.
The measles vaccine is still recommended, but cases have surged this year because of lower vaccination rates. Bradley says he's already seen the consequences.
I started my career before the measles vaccines were around, and I hadn't seen a case of measles for decades until just recently in an unimmunized kid. And it brought back to me just how horrible measles is.
County officials say childhood and adolescent vaccines are covered by insurance. They are also available through the county clinics for families without coverage. Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
A class action lawsuit stemming from gender identity policies at an Escondido middle school could be heading to the U.S. Supreme Court. 2 Escondido Union School District teachers sued the state in 2023 over a law that says school employees cannot disclose a student's gender identity without their consent. The teachers argue it violates their constitutional free speech and religious rights. A San Diego federal judge ruled in their favor in late December. This week, a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling stayed that injunction. Lawyers for the teachers say they filed an emergency appeal asking the U.S. Supreme Court to reinstate the district judge's ruling. A federal judge today blocked the Trump administration from freezing billions of dollars in child care funding for 5 Democratic-led states. KPBS reporter Andrew Dyer says that includes about $5 billion for California.
California joins New York, Colorado, Illinois, and Minnesota in the lawsuit. California Attorney General Rob Bonta says the president doesn't have the authority to withhold funds appropriated by Congress.
The Trump administration does not have this authority to override established lawful processes that our states already have gone through to submit plans and receive approval for these funds.
The $10 billion in frozen federal dollars fund child care and family assistance programs across the 5 states.
It's unconscionable, it's undemocratic, and yes, it's unlawful, which is why we've taken Trump and his administration to court.
In identical letters sent to the 5 states this month, the administration said it was concerned about the potential for fraud across the programs. It's demanding the states turn over detailed personal information about beneficiaries. Bonta says there's no evidence of systemic fraud.
This is about nothing more than a president seeking to punish Democratic-led states that have taken a stand against his bluster, his bullying, and his blatant and brazen lawlessness.
A viral video posted by a right-wing influencer last month alleged Somali American-run daycare centers in Minneapolis were engaged in widespread fraud. The video presents no evidence of that fraud. Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison says Trump isn't making decisions based on any legitimate investigations.
He's doing this because a YouTuber, a YouTube influencer, told him to.
The Department of Health and Human Services oversees the grant programs. It did not respond to a request for comment. Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
Well, the winds are picking up in many areas, the peak of the Santa Ana wind event into the early part of the weekend. But thankfully, we've been so wet in recent weeks that the ground is damp, a lot of moisture in the vegetation. So this Santa Ana wind event is bringing limited fire danger to Southern California. We're going to get down to 38 in El Cajon, 42 in San Diego. Pretty chilly out there, cold in the early morning hours. Wind advisories continue until 1 p.m. Sunday. We'll take a look into next week coming up.
Protests are planned here in San Diego County this weekend and across the country after an ICE agent shot and killed a woman in Minneapolis. Public schools in the city are closed, and now the mayor is renewing his call for local involvement in the shooting investigation. Lee Waldman has the latest, and we do need to warn that there is graphic video in this report.
Today, new video has been released from the ICE agent who shot and killed Renee Good's perspective has come down, showing what he was looking at the moments before he opened fire on her vehicle, before she crashed here, where there's still a growing memorial. While protesters in Minneapolis continue to face off with federal agents,
I will now invite us to take a minute of silence to honor the life of Renee Good.
A moment of silence and a declared day of unity, days after 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good, a U.S. citizen, was shot and killed by an ICE agent while in the driver's seat of her car. Students, parents, and educators also reeling from a clash between ICE agents and community members outside of Roosevelt High School.
I was hit with a rubber bullet just by standing there on the Minneapolis Public Schools property as a bystander.
Some calling on ICE to stay away from school grounds.
As we saw on Wednesday, they do the exact opposite of making schools safe.
The Minneapolis mayor continuing to urge ICE to get out of his city and the state, and renewing his call for local involvement in the deadly shooting investigation.
Include local experts in the process. We got nothing to hide from here. All we want in Minneapolis is justice and the truth.
The precedent here is very simple. You have a federal law enforcement official engaging in federal law enforcement action. That's a federal issue. That guy is protected by absolute immunity.
And Renee Good's wife, Becca Good, has released a statement now saying that her wife sparkled, and they're striving to raise their son in her beliefs that they love people who don't look like them, no matter where they come from. In Minneapolis, I'm Lee Waldman.
The San Diego City Council returns for its first session of the new year on Monday. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says water, parking, and a budget deficit are looming large.
The council on Monday will hear a report on the financial outlook of the city's water and sewer utility funds. The council approved 2 years of water rate increases last October. They're necessary to fund federally mandated water infrastructure and to keep up with the rising cost of water, which is linked in part to climate change and drought. The report makes clear 2 years of rate hikes will not be enough to fund the city's water needs. Barring a major change in costs or revenues, the city will need to raise water and sewer rates each year through at least 2031. Paid parking in Balboa Park is not on the council's agenda next week, but there's been plenty of hand-wringing about its rocky rollout. The parking fees started on Monday, 3 months later than the city initially planned, and that delay has created a hole in the city's budget. In the coming months, the mayor and city council will decide how they'll balance that deficit, either by cutting services or raising new revenues with higher taxes or fees. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
There's a new permanent place for San Diegans to find the food resources that they need in North County. The San Diego Food Bank held a ribbon-cutting ceremony for its new warehouse in Vista. It replaces a leased site, which will redirect around $400,000 per year from rent to hunger relief programs. The warehouse features expanded cold storage and the Client Choice Pantry, which is designed like a neighborhood grocery store,
which will allow us to distribute more fresh produce and more proteins like meat product that can be frozen. So after this past year where we distributed almost 10 million pounds just out of this location in North County, with a bigger and more optimized warehouse, we're going to be able to do even more than that.
1 in 4 San Diegans experience food insecurity, according to the food bank, and they say the new facility will help address the rising demand in the North County.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, who's struggling the most in the nation's uncertain job market? That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Trying to quit a bad habit this new year? Experts say willpower isn't the issue. KPBS web producer Riley Arthur explores the science behind addictions and strategies to break them.
Trying to quit a bad habit this year? Experts say willpower isn't the issue. Whether it's smoking, drinking, or doom scrolling, habits are deeply wired in the brain, and breaking them can take more than good intentions. According to the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime 2025 annual report, more than 316 million people worldwide use drugs, showing just how complex and common habits and addiction behavior can be. Getting started can be daunting due to dopamine and the mental and physical reliance on the habit or substance. Experts say habits tend to follow a predictable pattern, what researchers often call the habit loop. A cue, routine, and a reward. Once the loop is established, it can feel almost automatic.
So habits are really ingrained in the brain in this cycle, which a lot of people refer to as the habit loop. So the idea is that habits start with some cue, which is a trigger that then leads to some kind of behavior, good or bad.
That pattern is increasingly relevant as many people struggle with modern addictions like excessive screen time and doom scrolling, behaviors that don't always look harmful at first, but can quietly add up.
I'm definitely seeing an increase in doom scrolling, kind of getting sucked into videos on the phone. A lot of people are using it as a way to distract from difficult emotions, cravings.
And often people don't realize how much time they've spent until it's gone.
They start on a particular app and then 2 hours later they look up and where has all the time gone?
To determine when a habit becomes a problem, Lastwell says to look at whether it's interfering with daily activities or creating conflict in other areas of your life. When it comes time to change, experts recommend starting small rather than trying to overhaul everything at once.
Instead of trying to go cold turkey, if you want to quit smoking or vaping, you monitor and track, okay, how much am I smoking? So spend a week or two just actually counting the number of cigarettes or the number of vape puffs that you're vaping. And it can be a lot. So people who are, young adults these days who vape a lot of them might vape 200 vape puffs in a day. You gotta actually count those. And then the pace that you want to go for sustainable change is just reducing by about 10% per week. So shave off 20 vape hits a day, that's still 180 vape hits a day, right? So that's something, it may not feel like a lot of change, but it's something that your body can sustain without kind of rebelling against it or without experiencing too much stress.
I do tend to kind of lean on the wisdom of doing things one day at a time. If that's too long, 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time, and as consistent as you can be with doing a new behavior or not doing an old behavior, that all starts to add up.
Experts also emphasize that setbacks and relapses are not only common, they're expected. For example, less than 1 in 10 adults who smoke cigarettes succeed in quitting each year, according to the CDC. Self-compassion during slip-ups can make the difference between giving up and getting back on track. And when a habit begins to interfere with health, relationships, or daily life, experts say it may be time to ask for help.
If you need professional help, please don't hesitate to reach out. We really do want to help you.
Breaking a bad habit doesn't happen overnight, but small, consistent changes combined with the right support can add up over time. Riley Arthur, KPBS News.
Exercising more is the most common New Year's resolution this year, according to a recent YouGov survey, but experts urge you to be careful. Mandy Gaither explains why exercise injuries tend to spike in January.
You vowed to exercise more in 2026. That's a great goal to get healthy, but experts have a workout warning they hope you heed.
We see a very predictable spike of very preventable injuries in January every year.
Dr. Andrew Carbone with Orlando Health says after the holidays, motivation tends to spike while conditioning is at an all-time low. And he says social media often drives the rise in injuries.
There's one social media trend now with the kettlebell swing, 30-day, 100 kettlebell swings a day for 30 days. You know, that kind of stuff will cause overuse injuries.
That can include tendinitis, especially in the biceps and rotator cuff in the shoulder. Carbone says he also sees knee injuries this time of year, especially if a person suddenly takes up running.
You go from 0 to maybe running 3, 4, 5 miles. You're going to get a lot of patellar tendinitis, a lot of runner's knee.
To help avoid injuries, Carbone says to start slow, no more than 3 days a week, and incorporate rest into your regimen. He says that's when your body starts to build muscle. Don't follow social media trends. Instead, start with the basics like body weight exercises and core work. Consider getting a trainer to help keep your technique on track. And he says to remember, start with higher reps and lower weights.
Once you have the fundamentals like that, your core is strong, lower back is strong, your shoulders are good, then you can start to kind of play with increasing weights.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
And Dr. Carbone says that you can expect to be sore after starting a new workout routine, but if you're unable to complete the exercise plan because of pain and how it's affecting you, then you can move. Or if there's swelling that accompanies that pain, he says it's time to see a doctor. The 90-year-old historic Sunshine Brooks Theater in Oceanside is undergoing a major renovation. KPBS North County reporter Alexander Nguyen got a look inside to show what's being done.
This is what the lobby and the studio at the Brooks Theater look like now. Carpet pulled up, walls torn off, wires and dust everywhere. But soon it will look like this. The historic theater is undergoing a much-needed renovation.
The project's going to take about 12 weeks.
The 90-year-old theater is city-owned. The Oceanside Theater Company has been leasing it from the city since 2011.
The whole revitalization is about $2.2 million.
Phase 1 costs about $885,000 and will connect the studio and the theater's lobby, which are currently separated by a wall. The renovation will also expand the lobby to add new concession stand and 6 new bathrooms. It's something the theater has needed for a while.
We have 2 right now, and those intermissions, oh boy, those are very long. But now we have the comfort for our patrons to have 6 unisex bathrooms, 2 ADA bathrooms as well. I think it's really, really good.
Producing artistic director Kevin Blacksburl says the project was 10 years in the making.
So it's been a long phase, a long process, but I think it's time that the community that is constantly growing gets a space that is truly theirs. It grows with them,
Phase 1 is expected to be completed by the end of March. Phase 2 will start at a later date once funding is secured. It'll include updating the theater itself, as well as the lights, sounds, and HVAC systems. For now, the company is in the midst of rehearsal for its world premiere musical, Dead Moose.
Even with the construction, the show must go on. Opening night for Dead Moose is January 24th in Oceanside. Alexander Nguyen, KPBS News.
It's been a breezy time, but the winds may be a little more intense tonight and into early Saturday in the canyons and passes, the peak of this offshore wind event. Winds are increasing tonight into Saturday. Some areas may see gusts up to near 60 miles per hour in some of those inland canyons and passes, but it'll be a cold night as well in the inland areas into early Saturday morning. So pretty cold out there. There are even some freeze warnings in effect in some parts of southern California, inland areas up into San Bernardino County, for example. But as we look at the overnight forecast, chilly for us in the city, 42 for your overnight low. And the wind advisories are still with us. In fact, the peak of this wind event may occur in the next 24 hours. The canyons and passes are going to face the strongest of the winds, and most inland areas are under wind advisories, continuing all the way until 1 p.m. on Sunday afternoon. So here the map indicates here we're going to be dealing with the strongest gusts of 40 to 60 miles per hour in those inland areas. This is a downsloping offshore wind event. The Santa Ana winds to our north, and overall the fire risk is much lower this time compared to a year ago when we had the ongoing wildfires raging off to our north up into parts of Los Angeles and Ventura counties. The recent wet weather has saturated the ground and also introduced more moisture into the vegetation, mitigating some of the fire threat here despite the offshore winds. Dry weather winds out, chilly start, still breezy on Saturday. And we'll be up around 70 for highs in Escondido and Oceanside, down into San Diego, Chula Vista 69. Big variety here in the inland areas. It's all about elevation. Borrego Springs 60, but 40 for your high in Mount Laguna with that wind. The winds will begin to relax on Sunday afternoon. Dry, still bright out there, looking pretty good. Monday, not much to report regarding disruptive weather. We're dry, brighter, and we're not going to see as much wind out there, so that's pretty good news. All in all, not a bad stretch aside from the wind in those canyons and passes. Look out for spotty power outages early this weekend. But a lot of sunshine, pleasant weather, highs rounding pretty easily to 70 degrees for the coast, mid-70s, eventually hedging a little warmer into Wednesday of next week in inland areas. There's going to be a significant warming trend. Into the mountains, we're going to rise from near 40 Saturday to 45 Sunday, 52 Tuesday, 60 within reach on Wednesday. And in the deserts, here we're going to make a run perhaps as warm as 81 come Wednesday. So a decisive warming trend winning out into the middle of next week. I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Jeff Cornish for KPBS News.
The Golden Globes are this Sunday, so KPBS cinema junkie Beth Accomando is giving out her own awards for the best films of 2025.
Okay, just give Sinners all the awards because nothing in 2025 came close to beating it as the best. But there were a lot of films that gave me joy. From the honorable mentions list, Superman gave me Crypto. Sisu Road to Revenge gave me a senior citizen action hero. The Baltimoreans gave me my favorite female performance in Liz Larson. And Twinless had the year's smartest, funniest script.
Right? I mean, honestly, whoever invented the fitted sheet should be flagellated, and not the fun kind.
Une caméra, de la pellicule. Nouvelle Vague and Sentimental Value provided the best behind-the-scenes look at the creative process, while One Battle After Another delivered the most cleverly executed car chase of the year. Now for the top 10, starting with a tie at the number 10 spot between two films that dealt with trauma and oppressive regimes. Jafar Panahi's It Was Just an Accident focuses on moral questions, while The Secret Agent, set in 1970s Brazil, depicts an oppressive regime that feels more and more like today's United States than I want to admit. Next is the Spanish-French co-production Surat, which begins at a crazy dance rave as a father searches for his missing daughter, then takes shocking turns that leave you devastated. As someone who cares little for Timothée Chalamet's wispy emo appeal, I was delighted to discover he's perfect as a smug, narcissistic bastard in Marty Supreme. Kudos to filmmaker Josh Safdie for making an absolutely riveting film about ping pong in the 1950s and making it the nastiest film of the year. Then at 7, for contrast, is the slow, contemplative style of Lav Diaz's Magellan. It's a portrait of the historical figure from the perspective of those he colonized. Diaz's filmmaking is all about restraint and giving the audience time to let the themes sink in. Next up are a pair of documentaries about cinematic icons, My Mom Jane and Tura. Both play out like tense thrillers, revealing hidden stories behind actresses Tura Satana and Jane Mansfield. The Tura doc really knocks it out of the park, showing what a badass Santana was on and off camera. Your jaw will drop at her full story.
Let's have it.
Counting down at 4 and 3 are films that celebrate cinema in radically different ways. Reflection in a Dead Diamond is a glorious and audacious homage to 70s Italian giallo and sexy Eurospy films. Every frame drips with style. It's dizzying and delicious. Be Gone's resurrection from China is equally intoxicating, but delivers a far richer emotional experience, going beyond just a love of cinema to explore what makes us human. At number 2 is a tiny indie film whose very slightness is part of its charm and radical rebellion. Julian Castronovo's debut, or Objects in the Field of Debris, as currently cataloged, defies categorization, but displays an obsessive need to impose order on chaos and beguiles us with a quirky neo-noir mystery.
And thus, the mystery unfolds.
And then back to number 1, Sinners. It's a vampire horror film, a story about race, a celebration of black culture, and a defiant challenge to Hollywood, showing that a black filmmaker can negotiate creative control and ownership of his film. To studio execs, that's way scarier than vampires.
We ain't gonna kill every last one of you.
Sinners works as pure entertainment, but also resonates on a deeper thematic level. I knew this would be the best film of 2025 as soon as I left the theater. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
And there it is, another great list by Beth Accomando, and I definitely spotted a few films that I would love to check out myself. And for more arts and culture, you can check out the KPBS podcast. It's called The Finest. It's a brand new season coming out later this month. So the first season featured stories about up-and-coming local bands, a legendary North Park diner, graffiti artists, and even bird watchers, just to name a few. You can catch up now at kpbs.org/thefinest or wherever you get your podcasts. And also, be sure to join us tonight for KPBS News This Week with me, where we revisit the most impactful and intriguing original reporting of the week. This Week airs every Friday at 8:30 right here on KPBS. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, air, restoration, and flood services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.